All right now, let's talk about something that's got a lot of folks out here in confused marriages, tired marriages, and marriages that feel more like home renovation shows. You didn't say I do to become a personal therapist, life coach, or a full-time contractor. You married a partner, not a project. And some of y'all out here acting like you're on fixer-upper relationship edition. Let's get into it. Step one, your spouse is not your fixer-upper. When people fall in love, especially in the early stages, it's easy to overlook flaws, red flags, or even signs of incompatibility because they're caught up in potential. They don't always fall in love with the person as they are. They fall in love with who they think that person could become, and that's where a lot of the trouble starts. See, there's a big difference between supporting someone's growth and trying to remodel them like a kitchen that's out of date. Some folks enter a relationship with a full-on renovation plan. They got a list in their head. I'm gonna fix the way he dresses, the way he talks, the way he thinks. I'm gonna get her to stop hanging around those friends, change how she handles money, and help her become more ambitious. They don't say it out loud, but they treat their spouse like a fixer-upper house in a neighborhood they can't really afford but hope will increase in value later. That ain't love, that's investment strategy. Now this mindset might come from a good place. Maybe you see the greatness in your spouse. Maybe you see things they can't even see in themselves. That's beautiful. But the problem starts when your love becomes conditional. When your affection is tied to them becoming the version you created in your mind. That's not partnership, that's performance-based acceptance. And what happens next? You start nitpicking. You become critical instead of compassionate. You treat every flaw like a broken cabinet door. You stop seeing your partner's humanity and start focusing on your fantasy. That's exhausting for both people. Nobody wants to feel like they're constantly under construction, never enough as is. It builds resentment. The person being fixed begins to feel like they can't ever get it right, and the fixer ends up frustrated that their project isn't moving along fast enough. You also risk missing out on the beauty of the person you married, because while you're busy sanding down the edges and repainting their personality, you overlook the charm and character that was already there. You missed the little quirks that made them lovable in the first place. Step two, partnership over pity. There's a big difference between helping someone and being with someone out of pity. Sometimes people get into relationships because they feel needed more than they feel connected. Maybe their partner came from a hard past, maybe they're struggling emotionally or financially, or maybe they just seem lost in life, and that draws in someone who wants to rescue them. But here's the thing, a marriage built on pity is a relationship with an expiration date. When you marry someone because you feel sorry for them, or because you think they can't make it without you, you're not seeing them as an equal, you're seeing them as a case. You're stepping into a savior role instead of stepping alongside them as a partner. That might look noble on the outside, it might even feel like love, but at its core, it's a power imbalance, because the truth is love should never be confused with charity work. You might be the one always doing the planning, the thinking, is pushing. You might feel responsible for their emotions, their success, their healing. And when that happens, you're carrying way more than your half of the weight. That kind of dynamic doesn't build trust, it builds dependence. And worse, it creates an invisible scoreboard where you start to count all the ways you've helped and begin expecting gratitude or change in return. But relationships don't thrive on IOUs. When one person sees themselves as the strong one, the capable, and the other as broken or helpless, it's not love. It's a transaction dressed up like compassion. The partner who's being pitied may start to internalize that role, feeling less than, unworthy, or even ashamed. And over time, that erodes their self-esteem. They don't grow stronger, they grow more dependent, or they pull away out of frustration for always being seen as a problem that needs solving. The heart of a healthy relationship is partnership. Two people bringing their strengths, their weaknesses, their flaws, and their dreams to the table and deciding to build something together. Not one person dragging the other along, not one person constantly giving while the other just receives. You're supposed to walk side by side, not have one person constantly looking over their shoulder to see if the other one's keeping up. Step 3, you can't force growth. One of the hardest lessons people learn in relationships is that no matter how much you love someone, no matter how clearly you see their potential, you cannot make them grow on your timeline. Growth is deeply personal. It can't be scheduled, rushed, or demanded, especially not in the context of a marriage where mutual respect and acceptance are supposed to be the foundation. But too often, one partner steps into the role of the motivator or the life coach, thinking that if they just say the right thing, set the right example, or push hard enough, their spouse will suddenly become the best version of themselves. But here's the problem. Growth has to come from within. You can't lecture someone into maturity. You can't guilt them into self-awareness. You can't push them up the mountain when they don't even realize they're standing at the base of one. It doesn't matter if you read all the books, quote all the podcasts, or create a 5-year plan for both of your futures. If your partner isn't ready, none of that will stick. Real growth is a decision, not a demand. And when you try to force it, you often end up doing more harm than good. What was meant to be encouragement starts to feel like pressure. What was offered as guidance becomes control. And your partner might start to resent you, not because they don't want to improve, but because they feel like you're trying to rewire who they are. Instead of feeling loved, they feel judged. Instead of feeling supported, they feel like a project under constant evaluation. That's not a safe space for change to happen. People don't blossom in the shadow of someone else's expectations. They blossom when they feel seen, accepted, and free to evolve at their own pace. You can inspire them, yes. You can model what growth looks like. You can create an environment where it's safe to fail and try again. But you cannot drag someone to enlightenment. You can't map out their journey, even if you think you know what's best for them. And if you're constantly trying to change them, you might miss the beauty of who they already are. There's also an emotional toll on the person doing the pushing. You become tired, frustrated, and even bitter when progress doesn't match your effort. It starts to feel like you're the only one trying, the only one moving forward. And that imbalance begins to eat away at the relationship. Eventually, it can lead to resentment, distance, and burnout. Not because you didn't care enough, but because you cared in a way that didn't honor your partner's agency. Step 4, respect their journey. Every person is on their own unique path in life, shaped by their past, their experiences, their traumas, and their dreams. When you enter a marriage, you're not just joining someone's presence, you're stepping into their story. And part of loving someone in a mature, meaningful way means respecting the journey they're on, even when it doesn't move at the speed you want or follow the route you had in mind. Respecting their journey means understanding that growth, healing, ambition, and self-discovery don't all happen on a straight line or at the same pace for everyone. It's easy to fall into the trap of comparison. You might look at where you are in your life and feel frustrated that your spouse isn't on the same level, whether emotionally, professionally, spiritually, or mentally. You might think, if they just did things the way I do them, they'd be further along by now. But that mindset comes from a place of ego, not love. Because respecting someone's journey means accepting that their timing, their lessons, their pace, and their process are not yours to control. And when you stop trying to manage their path, you create space for genuine connection to grow. There are going to be moments in a marriage when you don't understand why your spouse is struggling with something that seems simple to you. There will be days when their progress feels slow, or they keep running into the same wall. But that's part of being human. You don't always know what they're carrying. Maybe they're working through fears they haven't even found the words for yet. Maybe they're healing from wounds you'll never fully see. And the moment you start criticizing the pace of their journey instead of honoring it, you risk turning your support into shame. Supporting someone's journey doesn't mean agreeing with everything they do. It doesn't mean staying silent if they're making choices that hurt themselves or the relationship. But it does mean offering your feedback with grace, not superiority. It means being patient, not passive-aggressive. It means letting go of the need to script their progress and instead becoming a consistent presence they can lean on, not a judge they have to impress. And in doing that, something powerful happens. When people feel safe to be where they are, even in their confusion, even in their stuckness, they are more likely to grow. When they feel seen rather than fixed, encouraged rather than directed, they begin to trust themselves more. They become empowered, not because you pushed them, but because you believed in them, even when they didn't fully believe in themselves. Respecting your spouse's journey also means recognizing that they may dream differently than you. What success looks like to you might not look the same to them. What feels important to you might not hold the same weight in their heart. But marriage isn't about syncing up every ambition. It's about learning how to walk side by side, even when your paths twist in different directions, and still choosing to hold each other's hand through it all. Step 5. Love doesn't mean losing yourself. When people talk about love, they often romanticize the idea of giving everything to another person. Your time, your energy, your dreams, your identity. We hear phrases like, "You complete me," or "I'd be nothing without you." And while they sound poetic, they can also be dangerous if taken literally. Because love, real love, shouldn't cost you your sense of self. It shouldn't require you to shrink, to silence your voice, or to put your own needs and goals on a permanent shelf just to keep the relationship afloat. Love isn't about disappearing into someone else. It's about standing beside them as a whole, complete person. Too often, people fall into relationships where they begin to compromise more than just preferences. They compromise who they are. Maybe it starts small, sacrificing hobbies, changing the way they dress, altering the way they speak, avoiding certain truths to keep the peace. Over time, that turns into losing touch with their own identity. They become so-and-so's partner instead of being seen as themselves. And it's not always because their spouse demanded it. Sometimes it's a slow erosion caused by the pressure to be the perfect partner, the fixer, the supporter, the glue that holds everything together. But the truth is, love should make room for individuality. In fact, a healthy relationship celebrates it. You are not less valuable when you're independent. Your voice, your passions, your boundaries, they matter just as much after marriage as they did before. And if you start to believe that loving someone means erasing parts of who you are to fit their comfort zone or their vision, that's not partnership. That's self-abandonment. Losing yourself in a relationship often leads to quiet resentment. You might smile on the outside, but inside, you're slowly disconnecting from your own life. You look in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. And here's the irony. When you lose yourself to keep someone else happy, both people eventually lose. Because a relationship built on one person's sacrifice and another's comfort becomes unbalanced. One person becomes overextended while the other becomes over-dependent. Maintaining your identity in a marriage isn't selfish, it's essential. When you continue to pursue your passions, honor your values, and nurture your own well-being, you don't subtract from the relationship. You add to it. You bring energy, clarity, and authenticity into the space you share. You're able to show up more fully, more joyfully, because you're not running on empty or pretending to be someone you're not. Love rooted in freedom, not fear, is what allows a relationship to thrive. And this also means being able to say no. It means having hard conversations. It means setting boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable, because someone who truly loves you won't just tolerate your truth. They'll respect it. They won't ask you to dilute your light to make them feel more secure. They'll want you to shine, even if that light challenges them to grow or see things differently. Real love doesn't ask you to trade authenticity for approval. It invites you to be fully yourself, knowing that the right person will stand beside you, not above you or in front of you, but with you exactly as you are. Step 6, celebrate progress. Don't demand perfection. In any relationship, especially marriage, growth is inevitable, but it's also messy, unpredictable, and deeply personal. One of the biggest mistakes people make is holding their partner to an invisible standard of perfection, as if love is only earned when every flaw is fixed, every goal is met, and every step forward is flawless. But the truth is, perfection exists. Not in people, not in relationships, not in personal development. If you spend your time waiting for your partner to get everything right before you show appreciation, you'll miss the beauty of the progress that's unfolding right in front of you. Progress doesn't always come in big dramatic moments. It shows up in the small shifts, the conversation that didn't turn into an argument, the apology that came faster than it used to, the effort to communicate more clearly, or the willingness to try again after failure. And those moments deserve to be seen, acknowledged, and celebrated, because growth isn't linear. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's falling and getting up again. It's trying, messing up, and choosing to keep showing up anyway. That kind of effort matters. That kind of work deserves love and patience, not constant critique. When someone feels like nothing they do is ever enough, they stop trying. Not because they don't care, but because they feel like they'll always be falling short. When they start hearing more about what they're doing wrong than what they're doing right, it wears on their spirit. It doesn't motivate, it discourages. They begin to see themselves not through their own eyes, but through the lens of disappointment. And that's not a recipe for connection. That's a breeding ground for distance, resentment, and emotional disconnection. On the flip side, when you celebrate progress, even if it's small, you build momentum. You create an environment where your partner feels safe to grow, to evolve, to be vulnerable. They know they're not being watched with a critical eye, but held with a loving one. It's not about lowering your standards or ignoring real issues. It's about balancing accountability with grace. It's about seeing the person, not just the problem. When you acknowledge the strides they're making, you're not just encouraging them, you're honoring their effort. You're saying, I see how hard you're trying. I see you becoming. And you have to remember, growth looks different for everyone. What seems like a small win to you might be a huge breakthrough for your partner. Maybe they come from a background where emotional expression wasn't safe, or where they were taught to suppress their needs. So when they open up even just a little, that's not nothing, that's courage. When they take responsibility or try to change a habit, that's not weakness, that's strength. Recognizing those moments creates emotional intimacy. It tells your partner that they're not alone in the journey. You're in their corner, not on their back. Ultimately, a lasting relationship isn't built on perfection, it's built on progress, on showing up for each other day after day, flawed but willing. It's built on two people choosing grace over criticism, patience over pressure, and encouragement over expectation. All right, now, let me leave you with this. Marriage is not about molding someone into your image. It's about loving them as they are while growing together side by side. You didn't marry a project, you married a partner. That means you're not in this to fix, rescue, or rebuild someone from the ground up. You're in this to build with them, to support without suffocating, to inspire without controlling, to love without conditions, and to grow without losing yourself. If you want a thriving relationship, stop waiting for perfection and start recognizing the progress. Respect their path, even when it looks different from yours. Let love breathe, let it be real. Let it be rooted in acceptance, not expectation. Because at the end of the day, the strongest marriages aren't built on one person dragging the other. They're built on two people walking forward, hand in hand, choosing each other over and over again, not because they have to, but because they want to.